Hello, I'm Patrick Stewart. There are at least 3 universes that each of us inhabit simultaneously. The micro-universe begins at the grain of space-time itself and includes everything too small to be seen with the naked eye. On a larger scale, there is the universe we react to every day. It's filled with things we can see, touch, hear, and maybe even smell. Yet, beyond the confines of planet Earth, there is a macro-universe we've only begun to explore and will probably never know in its entirety. It's a wondrous place, filled with things that seem impossible, yet are the result of natural forces that operate throughout the cosmos, from your own backyard to the farthest star. Think of it. There are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on all the beaches and deserts of Earth. Come with us, then, all aboard the spacecraft of the imagination, and explore that macro-universe that stretches from here to infinity. Our ultimate voyage begins in Earth orbit, sometime in the future, just beyond the local curve of time.
Traffic control, this is Scout Ship Sirius 4, requesting departure vector.
Sirius 4, you are cleared for deorbit. Vector 094 at 1724 Zulu.
Copy traffic control. Sirius 4, ready for pre-ignition.
Sirius 4, see you later, alligator.
On our way out of the solar system, we'll pass some of the outer planets. First comes Mars with its great red deserts, giant volcanoes, and the Valles Marineris, the most extensive canyon in the solar system, spanning 2,500 miles. Imagine the forces of nature that created this continent-sized wound in the skin of the planet. After Mars, on the other side of an extensive asteroid belt, is Jupiter, the largest and most massive member of the planets. At 2.5 times the mass of all the other planets combined, its gravitational field is so great that it actually has diverted some comets from striking Earth, while sending others to plunge into our planet. Rarely, Jupiter will capture a comet, which then orbits the giant planet. Eventually, though, that orbit will destabilize, and comets such as Shoemaker-Levy 9 slam into the mighty world with a force greater than all the bombs ever devised by humans. Beyond Jupiter is magnificent Saturn. Graced with a glorious ring system, Saturn is like no other planet in the Sun's family. Although 9 times larger than Earth, the elements that comprise Saturn are so light that despite its imposing size and uncountable number of moons and moonlets, this giant world could actually float on water. It would take, however, a very large ocean. We'll miss Uranus. It's not currently well placed for a flyby, so our next planetary encounter is Neptune. This giant methane blue world and its moon Triton was Voyager 2's last major photographic mission. Scientists were surprised to discover that Neptune had a great dark spot in its atmosphere. It turned out to be a whirling tornado, large enough to swallow the Earth. Neptune itself is slightly less than 4 times the diameter of our world. At the edge of our planetary system lie the cold, lifeless double worlds of Pluto and its moon Charon. Pluto was discovered in 1930 by Clyde Tombaugh after he had looked at thousands of images in a crude blink comparator. Pluto appears to be a gypsy planet. Its large, unstable orbit is predicted to sling Pluto out of the solar system in a mere 900 million years. Until then, Pluto and Charon will continue to circle one another, even as they revolve around a distant sun whose life-giving energy has long since drained off into the bitter cold of interplanetary space.
You're watching Sleepcore. Pleasant dreams.
Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that through all the deep of space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our own minute sphere. We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's. Across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as our minds are to the beasts in the jungle. Intellects, vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, and surely drew their plans against us. Hello, I'm Orson Welles, and I've been quoting from another Wells, no relation, H.G. Wells, the distinguished novelist, historian, prophet, who was also the great master of science fiction. He wrote The War of the Worlds, on which was based a certain notorious radio broadcast, which, as some of you may remember, sent many thousands of our listeners panicking into the streets all over the country. H.G. denounced me for doing it, but later when he realized that our broadcast, like his story, was not intended to cause riots, but just to entertain, We got to be good friends, and I was forgiven. Whether all those people who jammed the highways and even took to the hills to escape the Martians have forgiven me is another matter.
This is it. We thought that this was it. Listening to that show, I said we were very impressionable at that age because of Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, and that really made a big impression on us.
One fellow in particular who owned a store took the money from his cash register and loaded his car up with food and took off for the mountains and left his wife and children at home.
New York City was just demolished, and they were coming closer.
All of North Jersey is an inferno, and they are proceeding south.
I can conceive of no nightmare as terrifying as establishing such communication with a so-called superior, or if you wish, advanced technology in outer space.
George Wald is a Nobel Prize-winning biologist, one of a group of distinguished scientists meeting on the subject of extraterrestrial life. All of the people you will be seeing in this program, scientists, radio listeners, Orson Welles, have one thing in common. Each has had reason to believe in the likely existence of non-earthly life in the universe.
I think there's no question but that we live in an inhabited universe that has life all over it.
What I'm imagining is the facts that I've just stated becoming generally known, so that people know that out there is a million other civilizations. They all look fabulously ugly, and they're all a lot smarter than us. That seems to me useful and a character-building experience for mankind.
From the monstrous Mars life of his famous broadcast, Orson Welles will be taking us through science fiction to science fact, to the new view of extraterrestrial life now emerging from probes to the planets, interstellar discoveries, and findings about the nature of life itself. A real picture as astonishing in its way as the science fiction of 1938.
If there is life out there, intelligent life, how did we ever get the notion that it might be otherwise than friendly? Well, Mars, of course, is the god of war, so the planet bearing his name might be expected to have warlike intentions. In our broadcast, the Martians were as aggressive and ruthless as any human being. Ridiculous assumption on the face of it. They were supposedly as bad as we are, at our worst, and also much uglier. They brandished death rays in their slimy tentacles. And for a while at least, just toward the end of the radio play, they appeared to be totally invincible. What finally stopped them? Well, here's the way it went. In the words of the mythical Professor Pearson of Princeton, who was our commentator, I remember, he said, writing in his journal when the whole thing was put together again and the world was in business, I remember wandering through Manhattan, standing alone on Times Square, and catching sight of a lean dog running down 7th Avenue with a piece of dark brown meat in its jaws. I walked up Broadway, past silent shop windows, and suddenly I caught sight of a Martian machine. And then across Columbus Circle, I could see, standing in a silent row, 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. And I looked for the monsters that inhabit those machines, and then, before my eyes, I saw them stark and silent, the Martians themselves, with a flock of hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. And later, when their bodies were examined in laboratories, it was found that They had been killed by disease bacteria, against which their systems were unprepared. Slain after all man's defenses had failed by the humblest thing that God in his wisdom had put upon this earth, the common cold. And that's the way it was. Well, quite a lot of things have happened in the world since then. An invasion from the planet Mars, that at least is one thing that didn't happen. But in a way, you know, we have been invading Mars. If Mars hasn't exactly been invaded, well, it's certainly been investigated, not attacked, but thoroughly, very thoroughly studied. Observations of Mars had begun long before our broadcast, and even back then in 1938, it seemed plausible to many people that life could have developed on Mars, just as it had on Earth. Peering through telescopes, scientists had seen what? Well, first a planet that, like our own Earth, had polar ice caps. They were fascinated to see that the ice caps grew and receded with each year. Large areas changed color with the seasons. Did that mean vegetation? Straight lines were sighted on the planet's surface. Some called them canals. The American astronomer Percival Lowell believed that these Martian canals had been created by an advanced technological civilization. First in 1965 and then again in 1969, NASA sent spacecraft to fly by Mars and send back scientific measurements and close-up photographs.
This is picture 21, a red picture, wide-angle picture, fantastic picture. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Look at those little craters. This is a narrow-angle camera view.
The Mariner missions were great achievements for the scientists. But the pictures of Mars showed a world of total desolation. Was Mars less like the Earth then and more like the Moon? There were no canals, no cities, no areas of cultivation, no signs of upheaval or layering in the Martian crust to indicate that the planet was active or evolving geologically. The pictures revealed no volcanoes to spew out gases that could enrich the atmosphere. And water, so essential to life, seemed to be present only in traces. The atmosphere was so thin as to make the possibility of life seem even more remote. For the fans of science fiction, not very exciting. But for scientists, the whole excitement is finding out the facts. That's the whole name of the game. Now, these first flybys had revealed only some of the facts. But all the same, the exploration of Mars and of all the other planets of the solar system was actually getting underway.
I can't feel that any person with any soul can look out on that universe that surrounds us and can imagine the immensity of it and the history of it without being rather impressed with the idea that we, as little atoms made of the same stuff those stars are made of, have the capability to regard the other part of the universe. One piece of the universe has the ability to look at another part of the universe and wonder about it. That's a very amazing thing, and it brings into one's mind all kinds of thoughts about religion and philosophy and so on. But don't ask me about life on Mars, okay?
In the fictional Martian story, in the War of the Worlds, it was understood that the Martians were fighting for their own survival. Their planet was growing so cold and inhospitable that they might perish if they remained. while real life confined to such a planet would fight for survival by trying to change itself, by evolving. Every living thing on Earth has evolved from the lowly, the invisibly small microbe. Given nourishment, the microbe will grow colonies so vast that they rapidly become visible to the eye. Here on our planet, microbes have adapted to survive the most hostile conditions. Arid deserts, the frozen Himalayas, in trenches under thousands of tons of pressure, in the ocean deeps. Biologists at Ames Laboratory are discovering adaptive capabilities in life forms that a few years ago would have been regarded as fantastic. Within the cooling systems of atomic reactors, organisms have been discovered flourishing, where radiation could be expected to destroy any living thing. In hospitals that use ultraviolet for sterilization, strains have been found resistant to the killing radiation. Biologists are growing organisms in salt solutions, in acids, in alkalines, in ammonia gas, in boiling hot springs, in ice that is thawed for part of every day. In the vacuum of a space simulator, life forms have been flourishing for years without oxygen. Scientists are studying the kinds of environments that could challenge life forms on the planets and moons of the solar system. In 1971, Mariner 9 arrived at Mars, equipped to go into orbit and stay for a while. A good thing, too, because when it arrived, Mars' surface was obscured by a global dust storm. As the storm abated, a whole new Mars began to make its appearance. The first feature that swam into view, poking up through the dust, appeared to be a huge impact crater. But it stood miles above the Martian lowlands on the peak of an immense mountain, Nix Olympica. And as the dust settled further, the stunning truth emerged that the mountain on Mars was indeed a gigantic volcano. So, geologically, Mars was not a dead planet after all. Vast stretch marks on the planet showed that Mars' surface is shifting and changing on a colossal scale. Mars is beginning to look, geologically at least, more like the Earth and less like the Moon. And then new evidence of water has begun to turn up in surprising ways. Among the many clouds in the Martian atmosphere, some have been found to be composed of water. Then close-ups of the surface have begun to turn up strange, sinuous patterns. Some compare with the patterns cut into the surface of our own planet by the Mississippi River. Slowly the interpretation emerged that only a fluid flowing continuously over the Martian surface could have caused such patterns of erosion. Some scientists didn't agree, but astronomer Carl Sagan theorized that Mars indeed contained a great deal more water than we'd supposed. The water might remain locked within its crust as permafrost during ice age times such as the present, but during cycles of warmth, when the polar caps release gases to form a heavier atmosphere, the water may be released into clouds. Such clouds could bathe the planet in rains for thousands and perhaps millions of years. If Sagan's interpretation is correct, life could have originated on Mars in favorable cycles and may have adapted itself to harsher conditions as they developed, and indeed may exist on Mars to this day. Exobiologists are studying other environments, even as they prepare to search directly for life beyond the planet Earth. flying by Jupiter, Pioneer 10 confirmed estimates that within its atmosphere are combinations of gases similar to those in which life originated on Earth. While a second Pioneer is being aimed to curve past Jupiter and fly by Saturn, Earth-based measurements show that a moon of Saturn, nearly the size of the planet Mercury, contains an atmosphere, water, and surprising warmth. A Viking spacecraft is being readied to land on Mars in 1976, carrying an automated chemical laboratory to sample Martian soil for life forms. The discovery of just one bacteria on Mars, or any other body of the solar system, would indicate that the whole chain of evolutions, cosmic, chemical, and biological, is at work everywhere. In that case, the creation of life anywhere in the universe would be more the rule than the exception. In that case, there may be other intelligent civilizations capable of communicating with us.
You're watching Sleepcore, media for insomnia.
The sun, if seen from its nearest star neighbor, would appear as a bright star among thousands. And from that neighboring star, traveling at the speed of light, it would take more than 4 years to reach the solar system. .5 billion years ago, the sun and its planets were born when an immense cloud of hydrogen and cosmic dust began to condense. As the huge cloud collapsed, pulled inward by its own gravity, a massive sphere circled by a great rotating disk of gas and dust took shape. As millions of years passed, pockets of whirling matter in the disk consolidated. When the central sphere, heated from the energy of its own collapse, reached 1 million degrees, nuclear fusion was ignited. And so, the sun began to shine. The young planets emerged, bathed in radiant sunlight. Swinging in vast orbits around the sun, the planets evolved for billions of years, and each became unique. Mercury, closest planet to the sun, is overwhelmed by its fiery parent. It is thought that the sun baked away half the original substance of Mercury. The lighter elements vaporized, leaving behind a planet made of rock and metal, 1/3 the size of Earth. With no atmosphere or erosion, craters left by crashing meteorites remain fresh forever. There is little chance for any form of life here. At noon, lead would melt. At night, the temperature becomes cold enough to make iron brittle as glass. In the black sky, we see the neighboring planet, Venus. Venus was once considered Earth's twin, but rather than a heavenly twin to Earth, Venus, named after the goddess of love, is under its clouds a fiery hell. The clouds of Venus resemble the kindly clouds of Earth, but are made of carbon dioxide and traces of corrosive acids. The atmospheric pressure on Venus is 90 times greater than Earth's. The tops of the clouds are freezing, but under the clouds, trapped heat from the sun keeps the planet a raging inferno. It is unlikely we will ever find any evidence of life on Venus, past or present. For if living creatures ever walked this planet, both they and the cells of which they were made would long ago have been scorched beyond recognition. Past Venus, catching light that left the sun 8 minutes earlier, planet Earth and its moon. One can imagine travelers from another planet wondering if they might find beings similar to themselves here, or any signs of life, even a few quivering cells to relieve their loneliness. This is the view of Earth seen by human astronauts. To those travelers, it is home, where friends live and birds sing in the trees.
The chief issue is that of mining the deep seabed, where treasures and minerals lie exposed to any technology that can scoop them up. The trouble is that the developing nations want the activity...
The atmosphere shields the planet from certain of the sun's harmful rays and absorbs enough heat to keep the surface temperature comfortable for life.
Some progress
Our moon, about 1/4 the size of Earth, is large as moons go. It is nearly the size of the planet Mercury. Its surface is mostly lava, dust, and various kinds of rock, formed by the shattering heat of crashing meteoroids. There's no air here and no sounds. The dust is neither stirred by wind nor wet by water. A footprint left here will remain undisturbed for millions of years. About 75 million kilometers beyond Earth, the red planet, Mars. Some had hoped to find Martians digging canals and managing vast farms. But as far as we know, there is no life on Mars. The planet does have seasons. Ice caps at the poles change size as summers and winters pass. Every 25,000 years, they tilt a bit toward the sun and may melt, giving Mars rivers and valleys. The atmosphere on Mars is a near vacuum, 200 times thinner than Earth's. The planet's surface is marked with craters, canyons as long as North America is wide, faults and sand dunes. The crust is pierced by many volcanoes, including Olympus Mons, 3 times higher than Mount Everest. The thin atmosphere is easily penetrated by ultraviolet rays from the sun, deadly to all but the most hardy microbes, and there is no oxygen. Yet we have not quite abandoned the idea that something that moves lives here. Mars has 2 small moons, Phobos and Deimos. Phobos, the larger of the 2, is 17 miles long or 30 kilometers. Beyond Mars, in an orbit where we expect another planet, we find instead the asteroids. Thousands of pieces of metallic rock, raw materials perhaps for a planet that was never born. The largest is about the size of the state of California. The smallest, a grain of dust. Farther out from the asteroids, the largest of all planets, giant Jupiter, ruling 14 moons. Had it grown 5 to 10 times larger, it might have collapsed, ignited, and glowed with a red light. Our sun would then have become a double star, like billions of others in the universe. The Great Red Spot is perhaps a gigantic hurricane. The Earth would easily fit inside this red spot. Jupiter's atmosphere, topped by bands of frozen ammonia clouds, is 1,000 kilometers deep. Below the atmosphere, hydrogen, compressed into a liquid by the sheer weight of the gases above it. Of Jupiter's 14 moons, the largest is Ganymede. It is 1.5 times larger than our moon. Moving farther out, light from the sun grows dimmer, and distances between planets grow greater. Nearly 1.5 billion kilometers out from the sun, the most elegant object in the solar system, Saturn, with its rings circled by 10 moons. The rings of Saturn are composed of countless rocks coated with ice. They are so thin, distant stars can be seen through them. Saturn's largest moon, Titan, has an atmosphere, a poisonous mixture of hydrogen and methane gas. Far beyond Saturn, the third of the giant gaseous planets, Uranus, girdled by 5 rings. Uranus is 4 times larger than Earth. Its surface is veiled by clouds of frozen ammonia. The distance to the next planet is more than 1 billion kilometers. Neptune, the last of the giants, accompanied by Triton, one of its moons. Triton is perhaps the largest moon in the solar system. It orbits so close to Neptune, it is expected to crash within the next 10 to 100 million years. The sun is but a bright star shedding no warmth on the desolate landscape of Pluto, the last and least known of the planets. Moving on, we look back to see Pluto eclipse the sun. We are now on the outer edge of our solar system. It takes light from the sun 5 hours to reach here, and more than 4 years to reach the nearest star out in space. It is probable that many of the billions of stars in our Milky Way are orbited by planets. And beyond our galaxy lie billions of other galaxies with their countless stars. Are we alone in the universe? Or are there beings on some distant planet watching the night sky, wondering, imagining, of all things,